There is a pattern that quietly ruins people's lives, and it rarely looks dramatic while it's happening. It looks like normal life. It looks like being responsible. It looks like being realistic. It looks like having standards. It looks like waiting until things calm down. It looks like gathering information. It looks like protecting your energy. And that's why it wins. Because it doesn't announce itself as self-sabotage. It presents itself as maturity. The pattern is a slow, invisible deal you keep making with yourself. I will live in preparation mode now, and I will start living later. I will hold my breath now, and I will exhale later. I will become myself later. And the tragedy is that later keeps moving. The calendar turns, but the identity doesn't. The outside changes, but the inside stays postponed. And you can go years like that while telling yourself you're fine because nothing is crashing. That's the danger. Quiet ruin is not an explosion. It's an erosion. It's the slow removal of agency until you forget what it feels like to choose. This episode is about that erosion. How it starts, why it feels so normal, why smart people fall into it the hardest, and how to break it in a way that doesn't require hype or motivation or a complete personality change, but does require one thing you might not want to admit you've been avoiding: a decision that closes the loop. Let's name the pattern precisely. It's chronic self-delay disguised as intelligence. It's when your main response to anything that carries uncertainty, exposure, or discomfort is to move it into the future. Not because you don't care, not because you're lazy, but because delaying has become your primary way of regulating internal pressure. You delay the conversation because it might create conflict. You delay the application because rejection would hurt. You delay the gym because confronting your body feels heavy. You delay the project because shipping means being judged. You delay leaving because leaving means admitting the truth. You delay starting because starting means you can't hide in potential anymore. Potential is the safest place to live because potential can't be criticized. Potential can't fail. Potential is a clean image. Reality is messy. Reality has feedback. Reality has consequences. So you remain in potential, and you call it planning. Now, what makes this pattern quietly ruin your life is not the delay itself. It's what the delay teaches your nervous system about you. Every time you delay, you experience a tiny relief. Your body softens because the threat has been postponed. That relief becomes the reward. Then your brain learns a rule. When I feel pressure, avoidance will save me. That rule gets stronger every time it works. And because it works instantly, you keep using it. This is why people who are thoughtful and sensitive often struggle more. Because their brains can generate endless reasons that sound legitimate. This isn't the right time. I need more information. I need to heal first. I need to be in a better headspace. I need to be more prepared. I need to fix one thing before I start the other. And none of these reasons are obviously false. That's what makes the pattern lethal. It's not a clear lie. It's a plausible story that protects you from the immediate emotional cost of moving. But over time, it creates a larger cost. It creates a life that is always about to begin. And a life that is always about to begin is a life that never fully arrives. Let's go deeper. There are 4 forces that feed this pattern, and if you can see them, you can finally stop treating it like a personality flaw. The first force is emotional avoidance. You are not avoiding tasks, you are avoiding feelings. Starting exposes you to uncertainty. Uncertainty creates anxiety. Creating creates vulnerability. Vulnerability creates self-consciousness. Change creates grief, because it forces you to admit what you didn't do before. Many people would rather stay in discomfort they recognize than walk into discomfort they can't predict. The second force is identity protection. The version of you who hasn't tried can still believe you would have been great. The version of you who hasn't shipped can still imagine perfection. The version of you who hasn't asked can still pretend you were going to be chosen. The version of you who hasn't left can still pretend the relationship could have improved. Delay protects the fantasy version of you. It keeps the self-image intact. The third force is nervous system conditioning. Your body has learned that pressure equals danger, not because it is true, but because you have repeated a cycle where pressure leads to collapse or avoidance. When that conditioning exists, your body will generate fatigue and fog the moment you approach a meaningful task. People call it lack of motivation. Often, it is a conditioned threat response. The fourth force is attention fragmentation. You live in constant input, notifications, scrolling, stimulation, endless micro-decisions. Your brain is exhausted before you even start. So when it's time to do something that requires sustained attention, your system chooses the smallest relief available, which is distraction. And the pattern becomes automatic. Now, here is the brutal part. The pattern ruins your life because it destroys compounding. People understand compounding when it comes to money. They don't understand compounding when it comes to identity. Identity is built by repeated proofs. You become confident by proving to yourself you act. You become disciplined by proving to yourself you show up. You become skilled by practicing. You become calm by building a life that doesn't require constant rescue. All of that is compounding. And chronic self-delay interrupts the compounding process. Not once, repeatedly. So you don't just lose a day. You lose the version of you that would have existed if you had started a year ago. That's why the pattern is quiet, but devastating. It doesn't take things from you all at once. It takes them by preventing your future self from ever being formed. And when enough time passes, you start to feel a low-grade sadness that you can't explain. People call it depression sometimes. Sometimes it's not depression. Sometimes it's grief for a life you keep postponing. Now, let's make it real. Because the mind can hear this and still stay in story mode. If you want to identify whether you are living under this pattern, there are 5 symptoms that are almost universal. 1. You have an unusually strong relationship with later. You say, after this week, after the holidays, after I finish this, after my schedule calms down, after I get my energy back, after I learn more. 2. You over-research and under-execute. You consume content that makes you feel productive, but it doesn't convert into action. 3. You have many open loops, unsent messages, unpaid bills, unfinished projects, unmade appointments, unresolved conversations. Open loops create cognitive weight. Cognitive weight creates fatigue. Fatigue becomes another reason to delay. It's a closed circuit. 4. You oscillate between intense bursts and total disappearance. You have days where you become a machine, then you collapse and avoid. That's not discipline. That's a nervous system swinging between fight mode and shutdown. 5. You feel a strange kind of irritability when you see other people move. Not because you hate them, because their movement highlights your delay. And it triggers shame. And here is the thing about shame. Shame does not make people act. Shame makes people hide. So the cycle continues. Now, we need to talk about the most deceptive form of this pattern, the form that destroys high-potential people. It's when you become an optimizer instead of a mover. You keep improving the system, but you avoid the work. You keep refining the plan, but you avoid the execution. You keep perfecting the branding, but you avoid shipping. You keep organizing your calendar, but you avoid the one conversation that would change your life. You keep reading about discipline, but you avoid the boring repetitions that create discipline. Optimization feels intelligent. Movement feels humbling. Because movement produces imperfect results at first. Your first attempts will be messy. Your first drafts will be weak. Your first habits will break. Your first conversations will be awkward. That is normal. But if your identity is built around being competent, you may unconsciously avoid anything that forces you to be a beginner. So you stay in planning where you can feel competent, and your life slowly becomes a museum of potential instead of a workshop of reality. Now, let's zoom in on the exact moment the pattern steals your life. It happens when you feel the first wave of discomfort, and you interpret that discomfort as a sign you should stop. The brain says, "I don't feel like it. This feels heavy. This feels unclear. I'm not ready. I need to think more." And because you've trained yourself that discomfort is a stop sign, you obey. But discomfort is not a stop sign. Discomfort is the entry fee. It is the cost of becoming real. The only people who escape this pattern are people who stop treating discomfort as a verdict. They treat discomfort as a price tag. This costs discomfort. Pay it, then pass through. You don't need to like it. You don't need to feel inspired. You just need to stop making your mood the authority. Now, people hear that and think it means forcing yourself brutally. It doesn't. You don't break this pattern by becoming harsh. You break it by becoming reliable. There is a big difference. Harshness is emotional. Reliability is structural. Harshness says, "What's wrong with me? I must push harder." Reliability says, "I know what my brain does, so I'm building a system that moves me anyway." Reliability is calm. It's predictable. It's boring in a good way. And boring is what breaks the cycle, because the cycle thrives on drama and urgency. The pattern that ruins your life keeps you swinging between pressure and collapse. Reliability ends that swing. Now, here is the central insight. The opposite of this pattern is not motivation. It's initiation. Initiation is the ability to start small without negotiating. And the reason initiation is so powerful is that it bypasses your brain's desire to debate. Debate is how you lose hours. The brain will debate anything that threatens your image. It will debate whether it's worth it, whether you're ready, whether the timing is right, whether you should do something else first. Debate is a stall tactic that feels thoughtful. Initiation is a cut-through. You start before you feel ready, and starting creates the only evidence your brain believes: proof. Proof is what changes identity. When you start, you prove to yourself you move. When you move, the pattern loses power. Now, let's talk about why this pattern feels like it's ruining your life quietly, not loudly. Because you can still function. You still show up to work. You still answer messages. You still do the basic stuff. So you tell yourself you're fine. But the pattern destroys your relationship with yourself. It makes you someone you can't fully trust. And self-trust is the base of everything. Without self-trust, you overthink. Without self-trust, you procrastinate. Without self-trust, you seek reassurance. Without self-trust, you become reactive. Without self-trust, you can't relax because your brain knows you might not show up for your own needs, so it keeps you in an anxious loop. That's why the cost is bigger than productivity. The cost is nervous system stability. Now, I want to give you the specific pattern inside the pattern, because this is the lever most people miss. Chronic self-delay is maintained by a false requirement. The false requirement is, I must feel like doing it to do it well. That is the lie. Most meaningful actions are done before you feel like doing them. People who build stable lives don't build them by waiting for alignment. They build them by doing small actions that create alignment. Alignment is an outcome of repetition, not a prerequisite. When you accept that, everything changes. Because you stop waiting to feel ready. You start building readiness through action. Now, here's the next key piece. You must shrink the start. The brain panics when the start feels big. It sees the whole staircase. It sees the whole project. It sees the whole identity shift. And it shuts down. So, you reduce the start until it's almost embarrassing. 2 minutes, 1 paragraph, 1 email draft, 5 push-ups, 1 phone call attempt, 1 page of writing, 1 minute of budgeting. One small action that is so small you can't reasonably say you have no time. This is not about doing less. This is about building initiation as a muscle. Initiation is the gate. Once you get through the gate, momentum can carry you. But if you never start, nothing starts. Now, the third key is you must stop letting preparation be endless. Preparation is allowed only if it creates action in the next 24 hours. If it doesn't, it's avoidance dressed up as productivity. This rule is harsh, but it's honest. Because the mind can turn preparation into a lifestyle. You can spend years preparing to start a business, preparing to change your health, preparing to leave, preparing to learn a skill, preparing to become confident, preparing to be visible. And preparation will always feel safer than execution, because execution creates feedback. So, the rule protects you from yourself. Preparation must convert into action. Now, let's address the part of you that says, I've tried this before and it didn't work. If you're like most people, you tried with intensity, not with structure. You waited until you felt a surge. Then you did a lot. Then you burned out. Then you disappeared. Then you felt shame. Then you delayed again. That doesn't mean you can't change. It means your nervous system doesn't respond well to intensity. It responds to predictability. So, instead of trying to transform your whole life, you build a small, repeatable initiation ritual. Same time, same cue, same tiny start, no negotiation. The goal is to make starting automatic, not heroic. That's how you break the pattern. Now, we need to talk about the deeper layer. Why would someone keep delaying even when they genuinely want the life? Because wanting the life is not the same as tolerating the transition. The transition is where you are not who you were, but you are not yet who you will be. That middle zone is uncomfortable. You lose the old identity's comfort. You don't have the new identity's confidence yet. You are in the messy middle. The brain hates the messy middle. So it tries to send you back to what is familiar. That is why people sabotage right after they start. They start a habit, then suddenly everything feels pointless. They start a project, then suddenly it feels cringe. They start speaking up, then suddenly they feel embarrassed. That's the brain trying to protect the old identity. So the key is to expect that. Expect the identity immune system to react. And then you stay calm and keep going anyway. Not dramatically, quietly. 1 rep. Now, there is one more thing that makes this pattern quietly ruin lives. It's when you make your life about avoiding regret in the short term instead of building pride in the long term. Short-term avoidance feels good today. It prevents discomfort today. But it creates regret later. Pride is built by doing small, difficult things repeatedly. Pride is a nervous system state. It's not arrogance. It's the quiet feeling of, I can trust myself. That is what most people are missing. They think they want success. Most people want self-trust. They want to relax inside themselves. Chronic self-delay prevents that. So when we say it ruins your life, we don't mean it ruins your schedule. We mean it ruins your relationship with your own agency. Now, I want to give you a practical map that doesn't overwhelm you. 3 steps. Step 1. Identify your one life pattern. Not all of them. The one that is most expensive. The thing you keep postponing that would change your baseline. Maybe it's health. Maybe it's leaving an unstable relationship. Maybe it's building income. Maybe it's a skill. Maybe it's a conversation. One thing. Step 2. Define the smallest initiation that counts as movement, not results. Movement. If you can't define the start, your brain will keep delaying. So you define it. It must be so small you can do it on a bad day. Step 3. Create a rule that the start happens no matter what, and your feelings can complain while your body executes. This is a mature way to live. Your feelings are allowed. They're just not in charge. Now, let's make this emotionally real. The reason this hits people in the chest is because deep down, you already know. You felt it. You've had those moments where you look at your life and you think, I keep thinking about changing, but I'm not changing. And the thought is painful not because you're weak, but because you can feel your own intelligence being wasted by a pattern you never fully named. Naming it removes the shame. Shame says, I'm broken. Pattern says, I'm conditioned. Conditioned means trainable. So your job is to retrain. Retraining doesn't happen through insight alone. It happens through new repetition. You don't need a new personality, you need a new default. And defaults are built by doing the same small thing until it becomes who you are. Now, let's close with the most important perspective shift, because this is what will keep people watching and what will keep you applying it. The pattern that quietly ruins your life is quiet. It doesn't scream at you. It sedates you. It comforts you. It tells you you're being careful. It tells you you're being smart. It tells you you're waiting for the right time. But the pattern that saves your life is also quiet. It is the quiet habit of starting small without negotiating. It is the quiet refusal to live as a draft. It is the quiet decision to enter decision mode instead of preparation mode. It is the quiet discipline of proving to yourself again and again that you are the kind of person who moves. Because once you have that identity, your whole life changes. You don't need to be pushed. You don't need to be rescued. You don't need a perfect mood. You have a self you can trust. And self-trust is the base of everything. It's the base of confidence, discipline, calm, and freedom. The pattern ruins your life when you keep postponing yourself. The pattern ends the day you start proving to yourself that you will not postpone your own life anymore. Welcome to PsychBond. You're safe here.